Hello, we're back with Anatomy Part 2 over the digestive system. This is the Papillae version. Hopefully you have enjoyed Part 1 and maybe done a little bit of your coloring book, even though it's not due till, I believe, Thursday. But let's continue on with the papillae of your tongue, the taste bud containing projections. Everybody's taste buds are different. That's why I like really sweet things, and you might like really salty things, probably because you're salty, but, you know, got them. Just kidding. A bolus is a small ball in which food is formed by the tongue for the purpose of deglutition or swallowing. Every one of these things has a different word for a medical term, deglutition instead of swallowing, but you know, this is anatomy and everything has to be slightly different. A couple different stages of deglutition or swallowing. You have the voluntary oral stage. You're pushing the food to the back of your mouth. The pharyngeal stage. Breathing stops. Trachea is closed off. And you have the esophageal stage. Food is now in the esophagus. And you ever have your mom tell you, don't eat while you're laying down? Well, it's kind of true, kind of false. Gravity does help food move down our esophagus, but there's also another process called peristalsis, or the repeated contraction and relaxing of the smooth muscle of the alimentary canal. It is smooth muscle, so it does allow some movement, and it allows, as you can see in this diagram, the muscle will relax, the muscle will contract to push it downward in what's called peristaltic waves, and these waves make sure that the food goes from your esophagus to your stomach to your small intestine, etc. And so anyway, there is a way that you can get your food from your esophagus to your stomach, even if you are laying down. So gravity helps, though, so your mother didn't lie when she said don't eat while laying down. Stomach, the major, it is not a major digestive organ. You can live without one. We talked about that last time. Its job is to acidify food and kill most bacteria in it. It has three different regions. The cardiac region, the fundus, the body, and the pylorus. Of course, the pylorus is attached to the pyloric sphincter, which is what lets food into the small intestine in small amounts. You have the body, which makes up the main portion, the fundus, which makes up the top portion. Yes, that's fine. Just leave it there. And the cardia is where it comes from, the esophagus. Layers of the stomach. The outer layer is called the serosa, connective tissue. A thin layer of simple squamous epithelium. Below this layer are the muscularis, the longitudinal, circular, and oblique muscularis in order from superficial to deep. And so, of course, your stomach has to be really thick. Well, why? That's because if your stomach's ever punctured or there's something particularly gnarly that you ate, it's got to stay in the stomach. It can't get out. If the stomach acid, hydrochloric acid, which is many believe the strongest acid, if not the second strongest acid in the world, gets out into your body, you're going to have a really terrible time. I mean, if you've ever had indigestion or acid reflux, the stomach acid goes from your stomach, leaves it, and goes up your esophagus. It feels like it's burning, and it's just a very little, tiny portion of their stomach acid. And so you need to have thick muscular tissues surrounding the outside layer, the serosa. Beneath these layers are the submucosa and the mucosa, containing the blood vessels, nerves, and gastric pits, in which lies the gastric juice. The stomach is quite a large, thick, layered organ. It has to be that way for your own protection. Stomach acid is so acidic, the body makes its own pepsinogen. We commonly call pepsinogen artificial pepsid. But pepsinogen activates pepsin, which breaks proteins down into peptides. Another chemical from the gastric glands is called intrinsic factor, which allows for vitamins B12 to be absorbed by the bloodstream. And if you remove your stomach, you have to get B12 injections because the stomach is just about the only thing that allows you to absorb B12. So there is some benefit to stomach acids. Greater functions of the stomach. Remember, the alimentary canal had a serosa, muscularis, submucosa, and the mucosa. These layers are known as the four tunics. The stomach serosa, or thin epithelium, is instead known as adventitia, because it's much less thin. We already talked about why the stomach would need thicker walls, and that's just simply because it's dangerous. Now, the stomach is a digestive organ, but more so functions as an organ for mixing and moving food, mixing waves, and movement from peristalsis, as formerly discussed. Still occurs within the stomach. Lesser functions of the stomach: the pyloric sphincter, letting food into the intestines slowly rather than all at one time. You go to a Chinese buffet, let's say, and you eat all you can eat. So lots and lots of stuff in your stomach. Your stomach, so to speak, is full. Well, it slowly lets food into the small intestine. It's not like all the food goes in at once, because then all the food, the energy within food wouldn't be removed. That would be bad. Vomiting is another function. If the stomach is irritated, the food's probably not good. It's forced back up. The stomach doesn't want it. It decides whether or not you actually can get nutrients from it. Vomiting is a lesser function of the stomach. Last couple ideas. You have the small intestine. Three main functions. First function is to mix and propel chyme, or the stomach secretions. Number 2 is to digest food. Number 3 is to absorb the nutrients from food. This is the main one, of course, so small intestine. A lot of people think the small intestine has some of the same a lot of people think the stomach has the same functions as the small intestine, and that's just not the case. The small intestine is more important. It has 3 main regions: the duodenum, jejunum, and the ileum. And of course, each one gets progressively longer and longer. This one just takes the stomach, the food from the pyloric sphincter, kind of concentrates it. The jejunum actually does a lot of the extracting of some of the main macronutrients, and the ileum, of course, does kind of the same. 11 feet empties into the small, or into the large intestine. And as far as absorption, the surface area of the small intestine expands to offer folds called circular folds. There are also tiny projections named intestinal villi and microvilli. We have that villi, villi. We have those. All it means is little tiny hairs. And we have them quite a number of places in our body. These catch nutrients and secure them for absorption. The lumen, or the hole in the center of a tube, is inside the small intestine where the chyme can be found. So if you can see my whiteboard here, if you can imagine that this is the small intestine. This space here would be the lumen, the hole in the center of the tube. And 2 more slides. The glands of the small intestine. There are many glands, such as the duodenal glands, Brunner's glands. They secrete alkaline. Alkaline, if you remember from chemistry, is another word for basic. And so it helps make the food you ate more basic. That's important because basic things, bases, are very cleanly. They also neutralize stomach acids. And so let me go back to the board here. You might remember this formula from chemistry when we were talking about acids and bases combining. And that was that hydrochloric acid, stomach acid, plus sodium hydroxide, NaOH. The chlorine and the sodium combine to make sodium chloride, and the hydroxide and hydrogen combine to make H2O. So it's neutralized into essentially salt water. So these alkaline mucus glands are very important. The first ever hormone, secretin, comes from the small intestine, and we actually named it because hormones were kind of a secret to us, so we called it secretin. Kind of a fun fact there. And last couple of hormones. Wow, these are quite hard to pronounce. Cholecystokinin, CCK, causes the gallbladder to contract, pushing bile into the small intestine. You have GIP, gastric inhibitory peptide, reduces the flow of the small intestine. Why would that be necessary? Remember we talked about the Chinese buffet? Eat and eat and eat. All of a sudden, you've eaten far too much. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in the small intestine. Well, if there's a whole bunch of stuff, you're not getting all the nutrients from that. Your body is very greedy with its nutrients. It doesn't let hardly anything go to waste. And so it slows down the small intestine a whole lot in order to get every last drop of nutrition from what you ate. You also have a couple of other random hormones. Maltase breaks down maltose. Sucrase for sucrose. Lactase for lactose. Peptidase for peptides. And enterokinase actually makes trypsin, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later. And you can, of course, read your textbook to find out more about that. And any lack of one of these hormones or hormone receptors or too many hormone inhibitors, etc., can cause a real breakdown. For instance, you may have heard, well, I'm lactose intolerant. I'm not, but let's say I am. It could be a whole bunch of different things. The reality is maybe you don't have enough lactase to break down lactose. Sometimes the bacterium that symbiotically assist lactase, these are called lactobacilli. They're just not present. And so lots of different things to think about there. But those are the small intestinal hormones, and that's where we're going to end off in part 2 of Apologia Anatomy. I will see you guys for the next video. Stay safe out there. Bye.